This message comes from Capital One. The Capital One Venture X business card earns unlimited double miles on every purchase. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/VentureXBusiness.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. What's the most underrated Canadian thing that you think that the U.S. should adopt?
Oh, a Caesar.
A what?
A Caesar is a Bloody Mary with clam juice, Brittany.
Not Clamato juice, clam juice.
Yeah. No, that is what it is. That's what Clamato is.
What?
It's tomato and clam juice. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, man.
Well, we got a couple of Canadians here today. John Parmenter, Associate Professor of History at Cornell, and Sachi Koul, Senior Writer at Slate. Welcome to It's Been a Minute.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so you're both from Canada and live in the U.S. now. How much do you find Americans know about Canada compared to how much Canadians know about the U.S.?
There's a big difference between those two things. I mean, the vast majority of Canadians live in proximity to the U.S. border. It's something like 2/3 of the population of Canada is within an hour's drive of the U.S. border.
Oh, it's very different from the United States.
It is very different. So Canadians know the U.S. The typical U.S. citizen knows rather little about Canada.
Sachi, how much do you find Americans know about Canada?
Oh, almost nothing. There's like an old joke about the U.S.-Canada border that it is the world's largest one-way mirror. So Canadians look down and they see you guys, and you guys look up and you just see yourselves.
I've never heard that.
This is well-trod territory that you guys don't know anything about us. I mean, it's shocking.
We don't even know the inside, insulting jokes. That's a good one. Okay, I agree. I think we could stand to learn a bit more. Maybe especially now that tensions between our nations have risen. President Trump raised eyebrows and some hackles when he started floating the idea of annexing Canada to make it our 51st state.
Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like.
The stereotype is that Canadians are kind, but they, by and large, did not take kindly to this. As of April, 2/3 of Canadians considered the U.S. to be unfriendly or an enemy, and 61% say they have started boycotting American companies. And pretty shockingly, Trump's comments have been attributed to the win of the Liberal Prime Minister candidate Mark Carney and their recent election. A total turnaround from a 27-point conservative lead in the polls. Commentators say Canadians didn't want a conservative who might be sympathetic to Trump. That's what's most interesting to me, is that Canadian dislike and distrust of the U.S. is not new. Canadian views on the U.S. have trended negatively for decades. From a high of 81% of Canadians holding favorable views of the U.S. under Clinton in the 90s, that number has dropped to only 24% favorable as of March. Meanwhile, 87% of Americans view Canada favorably. There's a huge mismatch there. And I want to know, what's behind these decades of resentment? How does culture play into it? And what does it mean for our politics that our nations have fundamentally different ideas about our relationship to one another? Sachi, John, why do you think the U.S. started falling out of favor with Canadians decades ago?
I think a lot of Canadians feel reactive to how noisy American politics are. I don't even know if it's necessarily that this was a repudiation of conservative politics. I think some people thought that because of how the federal election went. I think it was a repudiation of annoying cult personalities in politics. That's what it felt like to me. I think there's an exhaustion because when you're Canadian, not only do you have to consume information and news about your own election, but you are forced to learn everything about the American election.
Oh, and we let it go on for so long.
You guys have no rules about how long an election can last. A Canadian election, there are laws. John, do you remember?
It's a very short period of time.
Yeah, less than 2 months, I read. And here we got people who appear to be warming up.
They are.
Right now in 2025 for 2028.
And so if I have no choice, but I have to consume all of this, and I'm not a taxpayer, and I'm not a voter, and I can't do anything if I'm in Canada, and you get to your own election and you're like, man, I don't want to do this here. I'm tired.
Okay, so there's a lot of political theater. That is a very, very, very fair point. What do you think, John? Why do you think the U.S. started falling out of favor with Canadians so long ago?
I think the one thing that we've seen unravel in the last few months has been the sort of silence that surrounded the deepening integration between these two countries. Okay, so you saw particularly since 9/11 with the way in which border security has been, the word that's usually used is harmonized between these two countries. And you see Canada kind of had to play catch up to U.S.-driven initiatives. And I think there is some resentment over that. What ended up happening here was that the United States, after 9/11, decided to make the management of its border uniform between Canada and Mexico. This is what they refer to as the Mexicanization of the Canadian border.
There's a whole commentary on
those words.
The border to Mexico and that as well. There's a whole commentary in there, yeah.
There was a rumor that went around that the 9/11 terrorists came in through the Canadian border. They did not.
I remember
that was not true. That continues to be repeated occasionally by...
Oh, and there's like an implication then that like the border is weak and we've got to tighten it up. Yeah.
And Canada's not doing its job and it's not pulling its fair share. So the U.S. is going to step in and fill that vacuum.
So I really appreciate that perspective on how Canada has been perhaps politically frustrated with the United States for quite some time. But I wonder, how is the U.S. positioned in Canadian culture?
I mean, like, America makes all the stuff we like. So sometimes we're big fans. We watch all your TV. We listen to all your music. Like, we're on board. You guys are obviously driving a lot of your own consumerism, but we are in lockstep with you.
We do a good job.
Yeah,
we do a good job. Yeah.
But there's also kind of always been, I think, like a quiet simmering irritation with the US. This like big brother kind of like, oh, there they go again. But at the same time, like, you're older than us and you get us beer and that's so nice of you.
Yeah.
And so with this tariff war, as soon as I started hearing about it, I knew. I was like, this isn't going to fly.
Yeah.
My dad has never engaged in a boycott in his life. He's at the grocery store looking for Mexican peas, Vijay Cole walking around with his little list, trying to make sure that not a single thing has been grown in the United States. Like, it has activated people, but it's activated people because that has always been a dormant reality and a quiet truth for us that we will laugh about this until you don't make it funny anymore.
I mean, what you're talking about really reflects what I think of as America's sort of like main character syndrome. We absolutely have main character syndrome. It reminds me of the scene in Mad Men where Ginsburg is like, you know, I feel bad for you to Don Draper. And Don Draper is like, I don't think about you at all. In the U.S., I feel like when a lot of Americans think about Canada, if they think about Canada, you know, Canada's our polite neighbor, maybe our little sibling, similar to what you just said, Sachi. And we poke fun at them a little, but don't really think of them as like very fundamentally different culturally from ourselves. Like they're like us, but nicer, which I gather is not the prevailing view in Canada. I hear you all define yourselves against us. Does that track?
I think so. I think like a lot of Canadians have maybe a muddled feeling about what being Canadian is. And I think Canadian identity is invariably so impacted by the US that it's hard to kind of get a clean shot of who we are or what we're about. But I'll tell you what, we are very much defined by not being American. That is so a part of being Canadian, is that like so many people will say like, well, I'm not that.
Yes.
Like whatever being Canadian is, it's not that.
I think to a large extent, I think when I teach my American Revolution class, one of the things that I ask the students, I say, how many countries did the American Revolution create? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, it's actually 2. Okay, it creates the United States and it creates British North America, which becomes Canada. Okay, and I think that's really something that not many people think about. So historically, the thing, the entity, the province, the colony that became the independent nation of Canada was defined as a result of the American Revolution. It was set up in part by the British as a refuge for loyalists during the Revolutionary War. And from that point in time has had a substantial anti-American orientation. And what Sachi said earlier about this manifesting now with boycotts and the energy with which these are being pursued. I mean, we haven't seen this level of anti-American sentiment. I can't recall it in my own lifetime. And the commitment that's being shown to things like consumer boycotts, tourism boycotts, and you're just seeing with the border crossing numbers that are coming in for the last few months, I mean, it is way, way down. I would not want to be running a tourism-based industry in a U.S. border state this summer. It's going to be ugly.
Wow. I have to say, I mean, what I described is the common, I think, the common American attitude about Canada. Being from Michigan, I have a different relationship. I am from a border state with Canada, and I'm from the Detroit area. So, like, I can't, like, see Canada from my house, but, like, from walking distance from my parents' house, I can see the Ambassador Bridge, which takes you from Detroit to
That counts.
Windsor.
Yeah, that counts. Yeah.
We consider Detroit a part of Canada. We've already been playing that game.
Okay, that makes me feel so good, because I have been calling myself, like, culturally Canadian for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another piece of this also, too, which is like, the fact that many people from Canada moved to the U.S. Y'all are two of them, so
Yes,
I'll mention
that's
that.
right.
But I was also recently interested to learn that immigration from Canada to the U.S. hit a 10-year high in 2022. 70% more people came here that year than even in 2012. And I know that part of that has to do with a cost of living crisis happening in Canada. Cost of living was the top story of the year for 70% of Canadians in 2024, and almost half of Canadians say price increases greatly affect their ability to make ends meet. So even as there are efforts to protect Canada from the U.S., many are leaving to come here. And then I could see how that might create a feedback loop, right? Like, a lot of nationalism is built on the back of the idea of a shared culture, a shared future. If there isn't, though, as you both say, a coherent national identity and more people are looking for a future elsewhere, I could see that as kind of a crisis of nationalism for Canada that maybe, this Trump stuff is helping to shore up.
An astute observation. I mean, I can give you an example. I had a student this semester from Canada. He was an athlete at the university here. He finished a degree, and he told me he would be earning about quadruple what he would be paid for the same job in Toronto. That's going to become the challenge for Canada as we move forward into the 21st century, is creating kind of a competitive enough domestic economy where you can keep the young people there.
Yeah, I mean, I make easily at least twice as much here as I would in Canada, for sure. There's no doubt.
Wow.
But across the board, it is astronomically expensive to live in Canada. Rent is out of control. Food costs are really bad. When you think about why people are boycotting so readily around the tariffs, it's because this is threatening people's very way of existing.
Yeah.
Like, food is going to get so expensive for Canadians. It already has, but it's going to get worse because where do you think we get some of our food from? We don't have southern states like you guys do where things grow differently. A lot of Canada is in ice. And so people are very aware of how bad it already is and how much worse it can still get if we don't work together.
So ultimately, our nations are very intertwined. Canada is the U.S.'s largest export market, but we also get a lot of our lumber and our energy from you all. What does it mean that our nations have fundamentally different ideas about how we relate to one another? And how does that impact all of the imports and exports, the bits of culture, and all the different people that we share across our borders?
I think we always had different ways of relating to one another, and I think everybody was fine with that. I don't think there was like a big play to like really get Americans to understand us or vice versa. I think it was sort of like a quiet acceptance of like, okay, this is how you move. Got it. I think everything happening with the tariffs and with trade is a real education.
I would agree with that. And I think one thing that would characterize the relationship for me is Canadians for a long time sort of looked at the United States through a lens of like good fences make good neighbors. We will choose the ways in which we're going to interact with the United States. We will find things that are mutually beneficial to one another. And that's how these economies got so integrated over so long a period of time. And I think people for a long time, worked very hard to optimize these particular economic relations, and to just see them kind of rhetorically tossed aside and told that they don't matter and told that they're not needed, told they don't exist. People are like, well, I think you're going to find out fairly differently.
Oh my gosh. Well, we will see what happens. But in the meantime, John, Sachi, I have learned so much here. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And as a thank you, I would like to teach you something by playing a game with you all. Can you stick around for a tiny bit longer?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no money on the line. This is public.
That's
media.
worse. That means my dignity's on the line.
We like to say bragging rights, which I think is
about
a few levels in seriousness below dignity. But, whatever motivates.
This message comes from LinkedIn Ads. Target your buyers by job title, company, role, and skills with LinkedIn Ads. All the professionals you need to reach in one place. Get a $100 credit on your next campaign at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. This comes from NPR sponsor Sierra. No matter the industry, how businesses connect with customers defines their brand. And today, connection starts with a conversation. Sierra is the AI platform for businesses that want to provide better, more human customer experiences. With Sierra, your AI agent solves problems fast. No canned responses, no endless hold music, no frustration. Just better customer experiences built on Sierra. Visit Sierra.ai to learn more.
This message comes from Jackson. Seek clarity in retirement planning at Jackson.com. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Inc., Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR.
All right. We're going to play a little game I like to call, But Did You Know? Here's how it works. I'm going to share some trivia about a very relevant topic. But don't worry, it's all multiple choice. And the first one to blurt out the right answer gets a point. Person with the most points wins, and their prize is bragging rights, not dignity. We're going to keep it nice and low stakes with the bragging rights. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
Sure. Yep.
All right. So this game's theme is famously Canadian. So we're going to learn some fun facts about some famous Canadians. So first question. The comedian Nathan Fielder is currently airing his incredible show, The Rehearsal, on HBO, where he's spending the network's money to make a giant replica of Terminal D at George Bush Airport, to make a fake singing competition show, and to turn himself into a baby, among other things. But he started in a high school improv troupe with another famous Canadian. Was it A, Ryan Gosling, B, Seth Rogen, or C, Dan Levy?
Seth Rogen.
I think it's Seth Rogen.
All right. Well, technically, you were both correct. It is B, Seth Rogen. But John's going to get the point because he was first. So go, John.
Oh, right. I was like, are we both answering? Okay. Yeah, I get it now.
I got the impression there was some urgency.
There is some urgency.
Okay. I get it now. I get it.
But yes, the answer is B, Seth Rogen. And Nathan Fielder says that they won their provincial improv championship. So go off. Okay. British Columbia. All right. Next question. Next famous Canadian. Keanu Reeves is a household name, at least in my household. The John Wick movies are probably, to me, as a person who doesn't really like action movies, the most perfect action movies ever made. But Keanu almost changed his name when he was starting his career because his manager wanted him to. What did he almost change his name to? A, Gord McKenzie, B, Lauren Tremblay, or C, Chuck Spadina?
It's C. I think it's C.
If it's Chuck Spadina, I'm going to have to lie down. I guess Gord.
I think you're going to have to lie down, Such, because the answer is C, Chuck Spadina. He says he floated the name to his agents, and they hated it, and suggested Templeton Page Taylor, and they hated that even more, so they let him keep Keanu.
But here's the thing, Brittany. Spadina is the name of a very big road in Toronto. It is like going around being like, yes. My name is Steve Broadway? What do you mean? What are you talking about? It's Jesse Madison Avenue? What is happening? Okay.
Well, I'm glad he went with Keanu because I don't know if Chuck Spadina would have made it. Woo. All right. Last question. Last famous Canadians. Which of these Canadian musicians didn't like the song they are arguably most known for? A, Alanis Morissette with Ironic. B, Celine Dion with My Heart Will Go On. Or C, Shania Twain with Man, I feel like a woman.
Oh, I'm going to have to give up my passport after this. I think it's Celine.
I'll go with A just as a guess. I think it's A.
Sachi, you were correct. It's Celine Dion. My heart will go on. She said, when I recorded it, I didn't think about the movie. I didn't think about radio. I thought, sing the song, then get the heck out of there. Which, I mean, if I had heard that in 5th grade when I sang that with 2 other girls for our talent show, I would have been heartbroken.
Yeah.
But I respect it, Celine. I respect it, Celine. All right. Well, that's it for But Did You Know for this week. Congratulations to John on your win. John, Sachi, thank you both so much for joining me today. This was so much fun.
That was great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
That was John Parmenter, Associate Professor of History at Cornell, and Sachi Cole, Senior Writer at Slate. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Rosetta Stone, the perfect app to achieve your language learning goals no matter how busy your schedule gets. It's designed to maximize study time with immersive 10-minute lessons and audio practice for your commute. Plus, tailor your learning plan for specific objectives like travel. Get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off and unlimited access to 25 language courses. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR. This message comes from Homes.com. You don't just live in your home, you live in your neighborhood as well. So when you're shopping for a home, you want to know as much about the area around it as possible. Luckily, Homes.com has got you covered. Each listing features a comprehensive neighborhood guide from local experts. Everything you'd ever want to know about a neighborhood, including the number of homes for sale, local amenities, and even things like median lot size and a noise score. Homes.com. We've done your homework. Support for NPR and the following message come from the Pew Charitable Trusts, sharing about the state of housing in America on the After the Fact podcast. Available at pewtrusts.org/afterthefact.